Hello, everyone. Tonight, we follow the time Apollo, the golden-haired god of music poetry and questionable leadership decisions, tried to start a band. You wake up sprawled across a sun-warmed rock somewhere on Mount Parnassus. The light is perfect. Your curls are shining just so, and there's a vague sense that today should be more. You've already issued 3 prophecies before breakfast, played 2 impromptu concerts for shepherds who weren't even listening, and frankly, the godly life is getting a little monotonous. Sure, you're immortal. Sure, you have access to limitless beauty and cosmic influence. But there are only so many times you can impress mortals with your 9-string lyre before even you start to wonder what if you took things to the next level. You decide in your blinding Apollo brilliance that the obvious solution is form a band. Not just any band. A legendary, era-defining, pan-Olympian musical phenomenon. You've already got the looks, the voice, and a backlog of haunting melodies. All you need is a few like-minded deities who understand your vision easy, right? You strum a few dramatic chords on your lyre, imagining a chorus of divine backup singers, thunderous drums echoing through the skies, crowds of adoring nymphs chanting your name in synchronized fanfare. The fantasy feels good. Too good. You're standing now, pacing atop the cliff edge in a shaft of morning sunlight, like you're about to launch a TED Talk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, if you're listening from somewhere interesting, drop your location and local time down in the comments. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first step in your divine band-building escapade, convincing anyone that this isn't a terrible idea. You start with the muses naturally. They're the go-to when it comes to creative endeavors, and besides, they technically work for you. Or with you. It depends on who's doing the mythologizing. Historians still argue whether the muses were actually Apollo's subordinates, his groupies, or just women who happened to be nearby when he needed backup vocals. You teleport to their usual hangout, a breezy glen filled with the smell of thyme and echoes of forgotten ballads. Calliope, the eldest and most eloquent, raises a sculpted eyebrow before you've even finished explaining the concept. "You want us," she says slowly, "to form a band with you." "Well, yes," you reply, trying not to sound defensive. Think of it as a celestial supergroup. Clio, the history muse, snorts. Because that worked out so well for Orpheus. You ignore that. Sure, Orpheus had a band briefly, but the breakup was tragic. The groupies turned into trees, and no one really talks about the goat incident. Anyway, you are not Orpheus. You're Apollo. Sun god. Music god. 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 Come on, you plead. We can blend styles, some epic poetry, a dash of astronomy, maybe a soft tragedy remix. I even wrote a choral piece in dactylic hexameter. Euterpe muse of music makes a polite coughing noise. We're more into solo projects these days. You try to stay cool. But imagine the harmonies. Imagine the aesthetic. Still, they exchange glances. Terpsichore whispers something to Erato, who visibly shudders. Something about the last time Apollo tried interpretive dance. That stings a little. You thought the volcano-inspired choreography was bold. You back off for now. Even gods need to work the room slowly. As you teleport away, you hear Melpomene softly begin humming one of your new ballads. There's hope yet. Back on Mount Olympus, you begin sketching out logistics. A name. A tour schedule. Matching tunics may be embroidered with golden laurel motifs. The branding alone will be timeless. As you perch near the edge of a cloud, plucking at your lyre and working through chord progressions, your thoughts wander. What if you brought in mortals too? Not as band members, obviously, too unreliable, but maybe as groupies, roadies, or inspirational tragic figures. Historians still debate whether Apollo genuinely respected human musicians or just enjoyed stealing their spotlight. Remember, Marsyas, poor satyr, thought he could outplay you on the aulos. One flayed ego later, the myth lives on, though you still maintain he knew the risks. The problem is, you've done the solo thing for millennia. You've dominated the lyre scene, redefined divine melody, and judged more mortal singing contests than you can count. You need collaborators, soundboards, fellow gods with rhythm, maybe even, dare you say it, backup dancers. A light breeze lifts your tunic. You strike a dramatic pose against the sun. Let's build something eternal, you whisper to no one in particular. The phrase echoes out across the sky, drifting all the way to Olympus like a marketing slogan looking for a product. One thing is certain, this isn't going to be easy. Your Pantheon peers aren't exactly known for their musical humility, or their teamwork, or their attention spans. But hey, what's the worst that could happen? Well, if history is any clue, failed concerts, divine tantrums, musical sabotage, and a three-headed dog howling in E-flat. But you're not worried. Yet. You pick up your lyre and play a few soft notes, eyes closed already, imagining the epic first concert. Chariot lights blazing. Ambrosia concessions. A surprise guest performance by a resurrected Orpheus, maybe. You'll have to check his availability. For now, though, it's just you. You and your slightly overconfident dream. And the sun is shining, of course it is. You're Apollo, after all. You descend from your sun-drenched perch with renewed determination and a short list of divine collaborators. At the top, the muses, who still haven't said yes and circling around the idea like skeptical cats are very much in "we'll think about it" territory. So naturally, you move on to step 2. Recruit someone who's chaotic enough to say yes immediately, regardless of logistics, musical training, or common sense. Enter Dionysus. You find him mid-revel, lounging across a bed of crushed grapes and questionable decisions. The smell of fermenting wine wafts thick in the air, accompanied by the unmistakable sound of cymbals, and someone trying to play 2 flutes at once poorly. His followers dance in chaotic rhythm faces, painted robes optional. It's the kind of party that makes historians debate whether the Dionysian mysteries were religious rites or just ancient music festivals with way better branding. You appear with all the gravitas of a sun god, radiant and brooding. Dionysus blinks up at you, momentarily distracted from watching a goat try to climb a wine barrel. "I want to start a band," you say, tone serious. He grins. Too late. "I already am a band." You try again. A real band. Music. Tour. Maybe an album. We headline Mount Olympus and maybe branch out to the mortal world. I have a vision. He rolls over, eyes sparkling. What's the genre? You hesitate. Undefined. Fusion. Lyrical myth folk with experimental harmonics. We'll invent it. Dionysus snaps his fingers. I'm in, but only if I get a flute solo. And a backup choir of satyrs. You flinch internally. Satyrs aren't exactly known for their pitch control or restraint, but you nod, compromising with the idea of just one flute solo, preferably off stage. And we need goats, he adds. Why goats? They feel the rhythm. This is the part where you start regretting your life choices, but you smile through it, trying to maintain that deified charm. Fine. But no tambourines made of mortal bones this time. Deal, he beams, swirling his goblet, half of which sloshes onto his leopard print throw blanket. You pretend not to see it crawling on its own a second later. You spend the next hour discussing stage aesthetics. Dionysus insists on wine fountains that spray in time with the beat. You counter with celestial spotlights powered by miniature suns. He wants interpretive goat dance during the bridge of your main song. You compromise on one goat, a well-trained one. You pluck your lyre thoughtfully as you watch him wander into his vineyard arms, outstretched like he's conducting invisible instruments. For all his madness, Dionysus understands music in a way that's felt, not thought. His rhythms are wild, primal, deeply annoying, and occasionally brilliant. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was more god of theater or of unhinged parties, but one thing's for sure: he never says no to a stage. And now he's your first official bandmate. You try to return to Olympus with a sense of purpose, but as you step back onto its polished marble, the muses are waiting. You recruited Dionysus, Cleo asks, crossing her arms. He's got stage presence, you defend. He's got an entourage of drunken woodland creatures, Erato points out. You said no, you remind them. He said yes. Calliope sighs. Fine, we'll workshop something. But we're not wearing leopard print. Progress. You begin assigning rough roles. You on lead lyre and vocals, obviously. Dionysus on experimental flute and vibe coordination. The muses pending approval on harmonies. Choreography, possibly dramaturgy. It's beginning to come together in a way that vaguely resembles a musical plan. You draft early lyrics, and Dionysus insists on rewriting the chorus to include a pun about vines and lines. You hate it. You let it stay. Somewhere in the back of your divine mind, you wonder if this is how Zeus felt assembling his lightning bolt dream team back during the Titanomachy. Probably not. He didn't have to argue about bridge tempo with a wine-slicked demigod. You hold a tentative jam session in the Temple of the Muses. Terpsichore attempts to choreograph something with ribbons and fog. Dionysus shows up late and drunk, holding a tambourine he claims is blessed by a goat prophet. You keep your cool. Mostly. And then the unexpected happens. As you're adjusting the tuning on your lyre, you hear it a moment. Just one. A fleeting second when Terpsichore's dance syncs with Dionysus's strange flute riff, and your melody folds perfectly into the chaos. You all freeze. That was actually good, someone whispers. No one speaks for a breath or two. Then Dionysus ruins it by belching dramatically and knocking over a candle. The moment's gone, but it was real, like catching a dream in the corner of your eye. You decide to move forward. Maybe, just maybe, this divine disaster of a band can work. And if it doesn't, well, there's always solo ballads and the occasional prophecy to fall back on. But tonight, you sketch out a set list beneath a constellation you named after yourself. You don't have all the instruments. You barely have a coherent genre. But for the first time in a long while, you're excited. The world's most chaotic band is officially in pre-production. You should have known it wouldn't be long before someone tried to take creative control. And, of course, it's Dionysus again, god of wine drama, and unsolicited artistic input. You're sitting in your sun-dappled cloud studio, basically a floating rehearsal room with acoustics so divine you can hear a lyre string whisper. You're working on a piece you call Chariot in G minor. something slow and melodic when Dionysus bursts in with grape juice on his tunic and a scroll clutched in one sticky hand. I've had a vision he announces arms wide. The band needs a theme. You blink. We already have a theme. Myth, folk, fusion, remember. No, 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 he says, collapsing onto a chaise lounge made of swirling mist. A real theme. Like heartbreak, rebirth, regret. You know human emotions, but also it should include an interpretive goat dance section. And flames. Preferably in the shape of a hydra. You stare at him for a long moment, plucking a soft chord for patience. Are you okay, you ask? I'm thriving, he replies. Also, we should have costumes that shed mid-performance. Layers of symbolism. Maybe feathers. You jot none of this down. Still, you humor him. You understand the value of showmanship, after all. You are the god of music and poetry, and looking effortlessly radiant in golden light. But Dionysus's suggestions are more Burning Man than Broadway. He unrolls the scroll, revealing crude sketches of stage designs. There's a floating platform surrounded by wine fountains, a chorus line of maenads wielding tambourines, and of course, a goat in a cape. This is, you say, slowly, very you. Thank you, and none of it will fit on the temple stage. He waves that off like logistics are someone else's problem. We'll perform in the forest under a blood moon, with fireflies and drums, lots of drums. You sigh. We don't even have a drummer. Yet. Here's the thing about Dionysus for all his chaotic energy. There's something magnetic about him. He sees music not just as sound, but as experience. You focus on precision notes, harmony theory. He brings the raw, unfiltered energy. Together, it almost balances. When it doesn't spiral into madness. And yet something about his flair sparks an idea. What if you say cautiously, we compromise? Keep the lyre as the core, but build around it some rhythm, some movement. But no capes for goats. That's my only hard rule. He agrees. Sort of. That evening, you test a new arrangement. Dionysus plays an odd, breathy double-pipe flute, while hopping around like he's avoiding snakes. The sound isn't terrible. You layer your melody over it, smooth and light, and for a moment it works. It actually works. Unfortunately, that's when a half-drunk satyr crashes through your cloud rehearsal space and knocks over a golden gong you didn't know you owned. The rehearsal ends in mild chaos, a wine spill, and one muse declaring, "We need structure." Which is how you end up doing something you never thought you'd do, writing a rehearsal schedule. Now you're hunched over a scroll by lamplight, sketching boxes labeled Lyre Practice Group Syncing and Satyr Containment. You try not to think about how this all feels more like managing a school play than leading a divine band. The next day, Dionysus shows up with a new idea, costumes. Again. I want to wear ivy, he says, but like dramatic ivy. You already wear ivy. This will be performative ivy. With mood lighting. You pretend to write that down and instead draw a frowny face. As absurd as he is, Dionysus brings energy. And the muses, despite their skepticism, are warming up to the idea mainly because Terpsichore has choreographed a rather impressive ribbon sequence and wants a chance to show it off. Melpomene's working on a spoken-word interlude about existential dread. Even Erato has stopped rolling her eyes every time you bring up the band. Historians still argue whether the ancient Greeks really saw Dionysus as chaotic genius or cautionary tale. But you're beginning to think he's both. a walking paradox with a wine glass and a dream. And honestly, you're kind of into it. The real breakthrough comes when Dionysus, mid-rant about needing more mist, accidentally plays a descending note pattern on his flute that perfectly matches your bridge melody. You freeze. He freezes. That was really good, you say. I don't remember doing it, he replies. You spend the next hour trying to recreate the moment. You almost get there. Almost. But even gods can't always catch lightning twice. Still, the spark is there, the bones of something real, a half-mad blueprint of harmony rhythm and questionable footwear choices. Back on Olympus, you share a recording orb with the other gods. You hope they'll see the potential. Instead, Hermes uses it to prank Ares, and Zeus mutes it halfway through to yell at a thundercloud. Progress is slow, fragmented, infuriating. But when the sun sets and you're alone again, you replay that one perfect bar. That unintentional harmony between a sun god and a wine god. And for the first time, it really feels like you're building something. Something strange, something messy, something kind of beautiful. And hey, if it fails, at least you'll have an amazing cautionary tale to turn into a tragic ballad. It's starting to get real now. You've got Dionysus, wild, erratic, surprisingly musical when sober, and even more surprisingly musical when not. The muses have stopped laughing quite so loudly behind your back. There's a half-functional rehearsal schedule that only occasionally dissolves into dance battles or interpretive lamentations. You should feel great. But something's missing. Drums. Not just any drums, good drums. Deep, resonant, heartbeat in your chest drums. The kind that shake temples and make oracles wake up from naps with declarations of doom. And, more than that, you need someone who knows how to wield them. Someone who can keep rhythm amid madness. Someone loud. Which brings you to Ares. You really didn't want to do this. You find him in his usual place, sparring shirtless in the Valley of Skulls, his skin glinting with sweat and aggression. He's swinging a sword the size of a chariot, screaming motivational threats at his soldiers. The ground trembles with each strike. You're about to ask him if he's open to joining a band, and he decapitates a training dummy mid-shout. You wait for a less murdery moment. When he finally notices you, he tosses his sword into the dirt like it's made of cardboard. What he grunts. You take a breath. I need a drummer. He squints, like, for war, no, for music. He blinks. You're starting a band. Yes, he snorts. With Dionysus, yes. He laughs for 2 full minutes, then wipes a tear from his eye. You're serious. I'm putting together something new. Divine but raw. Powerful. And I need drums. Real ones. Ares narrows his eyes. What's in it for me? You think for a moment. A solo. You get your own number. Big. Loud. You control the tempo. That gets his attention. Do I get to wear armor? Sure. Do I get to hit things constantly? He folds his arms. What's the genre? You hesitate. We don't exactly know yet. Folk-myth fusion. Dionysus calls it winecore. He frowns. I'll do it. But I'm bringing my war drums, and I'm not wearing feathers. You agree. Back at rehearsal, Dionysus is immediately both intrigued and terrified. What if he smashes the instruments, he whispers, hiding behind a satyr with a fruit platter? He might, you admit. But he'll keep tempo. The next jam session is intense. Ares doesn't just play drums. He assaults them. It's less percussion and more rhythmic warfare. You have to amplify your lyre just to be heard over the sonic assault. Dionysus's flute sounds like a shrieking goat in comparison. It's magnificent. The muses retreat to the back of the temple, arms crossed, lips tight. He's ruining the atmosphere, Melpomene mutters. He's setting the atmosphere, you reply. It takes 3 sessions to get Ares to stop trying to shout commands mid-song. He keeps yelling things like double time and crush their spirits during the chorus. You bribe him with a larger drum kit and a ceremonial gong. He accepts. Historians still argue whether Ares had any artistic impulses beyond the aesthetic of battle. But you're seeing a side of him rarely discussed. He doesn't just fight, he thrives on momentum. There's something deeply musical about the rhythm of war. And, while you'd never say it out loud, you're kind of impressed. One fringe historian claimed Ares once wrote a tragic ballad about shield loss. You never found the sheet music, but it feels true now. With percussion in place, everything shifts. Your music has spine, pulse. Even Dionysus starts to adapt his flute playing to sync with the beat mostly. Occasionally, he still plays against it, insisting he's creating tension. You let it slide. Ares demands rehearsal every other day, followed by aggressive cool-down rituals, which consist mostly of him punching a boulder and yelling, "I am the rhythm," into the wind. You decide not to intervene. To your surprise, the muses begin to join in more. Calliope adds a counter-melody to your lead line. Erato pens a surprisingly catchy refrain about divine heartbreak. Even Clio, who once called this band a waste of immortal energy, suggests adding a harp accompaniment. You don't say anything, but you smile. Still, not everyone's on board. Artemis hears about the band and sends a note reading, "Music is fine, but if you wake my nymphs again, I will hunt you." You pin it to the rehearsal wall as a reminder to keep volume down after sundown. After one particularly sweaty session, you and Dionysus sit on the edge of a marble ledge, legs dangling over a sea of clouds. The sky glows peach and rose. "This is weird," Dionysus says, chewing on a grapevine. "I know. It's also kind of working." You nod. "Don't tell anyone I said this, but you were right about needing chaos." He smirks. "And you were right about needing structure." Ugh. There's a brief pause. "Do we need a bassist?" he asks. You laugh. "We don't even know what that is. Feels like something we should invent." Maybe. But not tonight. Tonight, the band has a drummer. And for the first time, you can hear the shape of your sound. It's wild. It's flawed. It's glorious. And you're only just getting started. Your band has a drummer now. Ares may not understand nuance or melody or basic indoor voice etiquette, but he hits things on beat with celestial force. And with rhythm established, your next logical step is vocals, harmony, that mortal favorite singing, which naturally sparks the biggest fight yet. You're just wrapping up a rehearsal when Dionysus says casually, "So who's lead singer?" and you freeze. Because obviously it's you. You're Apollo, god of music, of art, of golden-throated perfection. Your voice can lull lions and inspire sculptors. You invented the lullaby. You open your mouth to say this when Dionysus says, "Because I was thinking." Me. You laugh. Then you realize he's not joking. "Dion," you say gently, you don't. "Sing." "I express," he replies, emotionally, through tones, sometimes with wine burps. But still, that's not singing. He stands. "Are you afraid my raw authenticity will overshadow your polished technique?" You blink. "No, I'm afraid you'll literally vomit mid-note." And so it begins. An endless circular debate about technique versus passion. Trained breath control versus feeling the vibe. You suggest scales. Dionysus suggests yodeling. You demonstrate a perfect vibrato. He responds with a guttural howl and a pirouette. Somewhere during the third hour of this nonsense, Ares hits a cymbal and yells. Can someone just decide who's leading the war chant? You glare at Dionysus. He glares back. You agree to a vocal off. It happens the next morning. You bring your best. Your voice is sunlight through stained glass, crystal, clear-controlled, transcendent. You hit a high note so pure that a passing eagle lays an egg mid-air. Dionysus sings, or rather he belts, wails, grunts, improvises. It's chaotic off-key and weirdly moving. A satyr cries. The muses deliberate. Ares votes for whoever screams louder. Melpomene abstains on moral grounds. Clio votes for you. Terpsichore votes for Dionysus. Historians still argue whether the Greek gods ever formally had elections, but today you kind of do. In the end, you compromise shared vocals. You will sing the verses. Dionysus will handle the choruses and the occasional howl provided it fits the mood. You hope you don't regret this. But there's a problem. Even with voices assigned, the actual lyrics are non-existent. You'd been improvising poetic filler lines until now, sunlight metaphors, pastoral imagery, vague references to eternal longing. Dionysus had been yelling things like, "Feel the goat and let it burn from the inside." It's not sustainable. So, begrudgingly, you turn to Orpheus, the mortal legend, the only human musician whose name echoes in Olympus without causing divine eye rolls. He wrote love songs so powerful they made trees lean closer. He once talked a boulder into tears. You figure if anyone can write lyrics worthy of gods, it's him. You summon him mid-performance. He's playing to a crowd in Thrace, strumming a lyre as deer and villagers sway together. When he hears your voice echo from the heavens, he frowns, sighs, and sets his instrument down like a man preparing to do taxes. Moments later, he's in Olympus, blinking up at you with the weary expression of someone who's seen things. You hand him a quill and say, "We need lyrics." He squints. "Is this about the goat chorus I heard echoing through the clouds?" You don't answer. Orpheus takes the job anyway, because no mortal says no to a god. Especially not to one with glowing eyes and a reputation for turning critics into swans. He works from the clouds for a week, writing during rehearsals, ignoring most of Dionysus's unsolicited creative vibes. He mutters phrases like excessive metaphor fatigue and rhyming ambrosia with nostalgia was a mistake. But slowly, a song begins to form. It's called Fire on the Vine. You hate how good the title is. The lyrics are haunting. They speak of passion that consumes of joy, that scars of music that binds even the gods. It's dramatic and overly mortal, but you kind of love it. You and Dionysus take turns testing lines, adjusting for tone for cadence. You fight over phrasing. You correct his pitch. He adds spontaneous background laughter to 2 verses and refuses to remove it. Somehow, it's working. Ares chimes in during one line and insists the bridge needs more war. You compromise by adding a drum solo that sounds like the destruction of Atlantis. Orpheus finishes the lyrics, hands you the scroll, and says, "I'm going back to mortals. You people are terrifying." You thank him. He nods already, halfway down a celestial ladder back to Earth. You hear him muttering, "No one should yodel during a love ballad," as he fades from view. You gather the band. You hold the scroll. You take a breath. And for the first time, you perform the full song. From opening chord to final note, something shifts. The music moves like wildfire, starting soft, creeping forward, then exploding in chorus and drumbeat. Dionysus howls perfectly on cue. Ares doesn't destroy anything. The muses harmonize like falling stars. It's imperfect, messy, completely unsanctioned by any official temple, but when it ends, there's silence. Then a soft echo applause. From somewhere. Zephyr winds carry it. You realize you've created something real. You also realize you forgot to record it. Classic. You've got your first song. And, against all odds, it doesn't sound like divine karaoke or a chaotic tavern chant. It's raw, honest, weirdly catchy. Even Ares admits it's not entirely dishonorable, which from him is like 5 stars and a laurel wreath. Naturally, now you want more. One song is a lightning strike, a novelty, but a set list, that's legacy. That's how bands get remembered, or at least invited to more ambrosia-fueled banquets. So you do what any self-respecting solar god would: you write a bunch of new songs in a single night. You're pacing the marble halls of Olympus, scribbling lyrics on scrolls, tablets, a sacrificial napkin. Ballad of the Broken Chalice. Don't Wake the Oracle. Midnight on Mount Helicon. All ideas. Some terrible. Some possibly genius. You bring them to rehearsal. Dionysus reads the first one aloud. Your gaze a spear, your words a blade. Apollo, did you write a war song or a breakup note? Both, you say. It's called versatility. He nods, impressed. I like it. Ares doesn't. Where's the part where we crush their shields? It's metaphorical. I don't do metaphors. You just sang backup vocals shaped like a wine spiral last week. That was different. There were gongs. You sigh. The process of making new music is slower now, more deliberate. The initial thrill has settled, and you're realizing something crucial: writing divine music means juggling immortality with mood. There's one piece that stumps you completely. You have the melody, a twisting, beautiful thing that came to you in a dream involving flaming chariots and a harp made of clouds. But the lyrics won't come. Every time you try, it turns into a hymn to yourself. Dionysus notices. Maybe the song isn't about you. You blink. What else would it be about? He shrugs. Try writing it like it's about someone you miss. Not worship, just remember. You don't like how that makes you feel. But you try. You think of Daphne of laurel trees and fleeing footsteps. You think of silence, of what's left unsaid. And slowly the lyrics form. The muses help weaving their knowledge of epic poetry into refrains and bridges. Erato gently suggests that maybe not every line should mention sunlight. You take her note. The new song, The Tree Remembers, is slower, sadder. Dionysus volunteers to play tambourine. Ares is suspicious but keeps time with a soft war drum. You sing it quietly, eyes closed, and the air in the temple shifts. When it ends, no one claps. They just sit there. Even Ares looks moved. That was tragic, he says. I loved it. You try to pretend it doesn't matter, that the praise doesn't warm something you thought turned to marble long ago. But it does. You're not just writing music anymore. You're opening wounds, divine ones. And that's dangerous. Historians still argue whether the gods ever felt regret in the human sense. Most believe divine memory is too vast to hold on to anything so mortal. But you feel it now, in every chord. Of course, Dionysus immediately ruins the mood. I wrote a new song too, he says, grinning. It's called Get the Satyr Out. You don't want to hear it. He sings it anyway. It's 3 minutes of unhinged flute solos, chaotic yelling, and lyrics that include the phrase, "sweat like a minotaur." Aries loves it. You consider quitting music entirely. Still, the contrast is weirdly effective. The tree remembers in To Get the Satyr Out is jarring but memorable. You keep both. You're building a set list now. 7 songs deep. The genres are all over the place. You've got an anthem, a dirge, a weird drinking song, a ballad to a lost tree nymph, and one experimental number called Echo, 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 where the muses harmonize with themselves in different time signatures. Somehow, it's working. You realize you need structure, a proper order, a show flow. You spend a whole day choreographing a hypothetical performance. Dionysus brings in nymphs for background movement. Aries tries to add pyrotechnics. You let him. You're deep in this now, and somewhere in the back of your divine brain, you're starting to wonder, what is this for? It's not worship. Mortals don't even know about it yet. You're not playing for offerings or temples or gold. You're playing for each other. And maybe, just maybe, for yourselves. That night, you sit on the edge of the clouds again, watching the stars blink. Dionysus appears beside you holding a wine cup and a half-tuned pan flute. He says nothing. Neither do you. You hum a new melody. He adds a harmony. The sky listens. You are officially a band now. You've got a repertoire, a messy but undeniably passionate ensemble, and a name that changes weekly. Currently, Dionysus insists you're called the Gorgon's Bang, but last week it was Cloud Snare, and the week before Apollo and the Unraveling. You've stopped fighting it. Naming things is like hurting Cerberus impressive if you survive, but mostly pointless. So, what do bands need next? An audience. Performing in Olympus is gratifying in the way shouting into a mirror is gratifying. You look great, sound great, but it's still just you in the room. The muses are loyal but tired. The other gods peek in, occasionally mutter something about noise pollution, and leave. You crave something more. So you decide it's time to go public. But not just anywhere. Mortals are delicate. They can barely handle lightning. If you drop a full god band performance on them, half the crowd might transcend consciousness, and the other half might burst into spontaneous interpretive dance until dehydration takes them. You need a warm-up venue. You choose the underworld. Yes, that underworld. The logic is flimsy. But you tell yourself it makes sense, souls are already dead, so you don't risk killing anyone with sheer talent. Hades has space, and technically, he owes you a favor from that time you rescued Persephone's garden goat. Plus, if the band can impress the dead, the living will be easy. Convincing the band is surprisingly simple. Dionysus thinks it'll be edgy. Ares wants to test how sound waves echo off bone. The muses claim it'll help them finish their death-themed concept chorus. You pack your lyres, your scrolls, your war drum. You descend. The river Styx is surprisingly quiet. Charon recognizes you and pretends not to be intimidated, but you catch him humming Fire on the Vine as he rows. You tip him a drachma and say nothing. Cerberus greets you with 3 distinct reactions, a bark, a sniff, and what might be a dance move. You feed him a bone dipped in honey, which is probably not vet-approved, but you're a god, not a vet. Hades waits in his obsidian throne room. He listens to your pitch finger's steepled expression unreadable. You want to perform, he says slowly, for the dead. You nod. It's ambient. He sighs. And what happens if they don't like it? You hadn't considered that, but you improvise. Then they can boo us into oblivion. We'll call it a creative purge, he thinks, then shrugs. Fine, just keep it under 30 minutes. I have a meeting with Thanatos. You thank him and rush to set up. The venue is a cavern the size of a mortal city full of drifting souls and slow-burning torches that never consume. You arrange instruments on a platform of black marble. The acoustics are incredible. You can hear Dionysus chewing ambrosia from 3 columns away. The souls gather, thousands of them. Whispers pass through the crowd. Apollo, music, something called a jam session. You take your place center stage. The band tunes. Ares flexes. The muses meditate. Then you begin. You start with The Tree Remembers. Soft, melancholic, it drifts through the chamber like fog on the Lethe. Spirits sway gently as if remembering lives long lost. Then Dionysus launches into Get the Satyr Out. It shouldn't work, but it does. The contrast wakes the room up. The dead begin clapping. Some attempt to dance. One soul starts breakdancing, which is historically questionable, but you don't stop them. The muses perform Echo. Echo, echo, with eerie perfection, each harmony lingering like a memory that refuses to fade. Ares pounds through the bridge of Ballad of the Broken Chalice with such force, a few bones rattle free from a nearby pile. Everyone cheers. Even Hades taps his foot. Halfway through midnight on Mount Helicon, you hit a high note so pure the Elysian fields bloom early. You pretend not to notice. No need to make it weird. By the final song, the audience is humming along. No screams, no fainting, just a low, quiet joy. The kind that feels earned. You bow. The cavern echoes with applause not loud but real. Solid. You leave the underworld feeling lighter. Not because you succeeded, but because you connected. Even if it was with souls who can't post about it on social media. Back in Olympus, you regroup. Dionysus claims he saw a spirit cry. Ares says it was probably condensation. The muses want to release an underworld-themed album. You suggest waiting until someone invents albums. Historians still argue whether this underworld concert actually happened. Some claim it's myth stacked on myth. Others swear it's the origin of all tragic ballads sung near fires. But one thing is clear, your band can play. Anywhere. Even in the realm of the dead. You return from the underworld with a confidence that borders on dangerous. You've played for the dead. You've moved a soul to breakdance. You've seen Hades tap his foot, which is the underworld equivalent of a standing ovation. So, naturally, your next move is obvious: take the band on tour. But not just any tour. A mortal realm tour. The idea comes to you as you're watching a group of shepherds in Thessaly sing an off-key tune about goat migration. It's earnest, it's loud, and it's deeply terrible. But the mortals clap and laugh and throw olives, which appears to be a compliment. You realize something fundamental: mortals don't just want divine perfection. They want connection, energy, a reason to leave their olive groves and sweat-soaked togas and feel something bigger than the harvest. And you can give them that. Well, maybe. You pitch the idea to the band. Dionysus is instantly on board. I love attention, he says, adjusting a grapevine crown he definitely hasn't taken off in 3 weeks. Ares is suspicious. What if the mortals try to sacrifice us? They won't, you say. We're not in statue mode. The muses are in on one condition: they want creative control over the staging. You agree, though. You immediately regret it when they present a 40-foot backdrop of a crying chimera surrounded by golden lyres. Subtlety is not their strong suit. You plan your first stop Delphi. Yes, it's your own sacred temple. Yes, it's technically cheating, but the acoustics are great and you know the priestesses. One owes you a favor after you cured her goat of musical hiccups. Long story. You arrive incognito, well as incognito as a glowing sun god traveling with a war drum, and 9 harmonizing sisters can be. The oracle greets you with the vague smile of someone who just foresaw disaster and isn't allowed to say anything. You set up at dusk. The band tunes. Dionysus paints his face with crushed berries. Ares oils his arms, which serves no musical purpose but does catch the torchlight impressively. The muses hum in complex rounds which somehow summons doves. Then the mortals gather. They come with baskets of figs, jugs of wine, even hand-drawn instruments. They've heard whispers music in dreams, glimpses of glowing strings, a faint echo drifting from the mountains. They don't know who you are, but they feel it. You step onto the stone stage and begin. The first song is Fire on the Vine, and it hits hard. The crowd gasps. A baby giggles. A goat passes out possibly from excitement. Then Dionysus launches into Get the Satyr Out. It's chaos. Mortals laugh, clap, start dancing. One man spins until he falls into a pomegranate stand. You let it happen. But it's the third song the tree remembers that changes everything. You watch faces still, eyes close. A woman in the front row mouths the lyrics though she couldn't possibly know them. You realize this music is doing more than entertaining. It's healing. And it's also slightly dangerous. Because as you finish the set and bow and let the final notes ring out over the hills, the mortals do something unexpected. They kneel. All of them. Heads bowed. Hands over hearts. They think it's worship, and you panic. You never meant to start a cult. You just wanted to jam. You quickly step forward, hands raised. Please, you say, this is not an offering. This is vibes. They blink at you. You try again. This is not a ritual. It's a concert. You're allowed to stand. A few rise. Others look confused. One throws a garland at your feet and whispers, "Immortal harmony." You sigh. Historians still argue whether the cult of melos or sacred sound originated here. Some say it was a localized worship of Apollo as the muse of echo and flame. Others believe it was just a particularly enthusiastic audience misinterpreting a very emotional encore. Either way, the movement spreads. Your next stop, Athens. Bigger crowd. More pressure. You get there set up near the Acropolis and realize something horrifying: you're facing philosophers. Mortals who think deeply. Judge relentlessly. Debate whether harmony reflects universal balance or is just a trick of the ear. Socrates shows up. He squints at your lyre and asks, "But what is music truly?" Dionysus tells him to sit down and shut up. You play. The philosophers analyze everything. During midnight on Mount Helicon, one yells, "That's an allusion to the duality of man." Another counters, "No, it's clearly a commentary on divine detachment." You lose the crowd for a moment, until Ares steps forward and slams a solo drum beat so powerful it shakes 2 columns and silences the entire forum. You nod, and launch into echo, echo, echo. By the end, even the Stoics are swaying. After Athens, the band hits its stride. Corinth, Thebes, Sparta, which was risky, but Ares insisted. Their mosh pits are legendary, he says. You believe him. That show ends with 3 broken lyres and a mortal named Cleon screaming, "This is the sound of victory," before diving into a fountain. It's glorious and exhausting. You begin to notice the strain, muses losing their voices. Dionysus drinking more than usual, not just wine, but strange concoctions he calls inspiration potions, that definitely smell like burnt laurel and poor choices. Even you feel it. The weight of attention, the pressure to stay radiant, creative, divine. You wonder if mortals feel this too. You suspect they do. You dream of silence, but there's still one place left to play. One crowd you've avoided. Your family. Olympus. You've played for mortal spirits, philosophers' goats, and at least one ghost who demanded a refund in drachmas. But now, as you ascend the golden steps of Mount Olympus again, lyre in hand, and sandals slightly worn from too much stage strutting, you face the final boss, your own divine relatives. The immortal crowd is a brutal one. They've seen everything. Invented most things. If you mess up a single chord, they'll never let you live it down. Not for a century. Maybe two. You enter the Hall of Echoes, an amphitheater, carved into pure white cloud where gods gather to boast bicker, and occasionally host poetry slams that end in thunderbolts. You stand at the base of the arena band in tow. Dionysus adjusts his wine-soaked sash. Ares paces already shirtless and glistening with anticipation. The muses float behind you in formation like a shimmering chorus line of judgment. Zeus sits on the highest dais, his beard suspiciously well-groomed. Hera beside him, arms crossed, face unreadable. Poseidon lounges with a trident full of fish for snacks. Athena polishes her helmet. Hermes live blogs everything mentally to future mortals via Dream Post. No pressure. You announce the concert with what you hope is divine poise and not barely restrained panic. Fellow Olympians, we bring you sound. We bring you song. We bring you the least coordinated band to ever carry a tune across dimensions. Hermes laughs. 1 point for charisma. You open with Fire on the Vine. Safe high energy and appropriately Dionysian. The crowd taps along. Artemis smirks. Apollo 1, Family 0. Then you shift to The Tree Remembers. Hera blinks slowly. Hestia lights her torch just a little brighter. It's working, and then Zeus clears his throat. You freeze. I've heard better, he rumbles. Oof. Ares, to his credit, doesn't punch him. Instead, he launches into an impromptu drum solo that shakes the ceiling. It's aggressive. It's a little petty. It works. Zeus grunts in appreciation. You finish the song. Applause echoes, but it's polite, not passionate. You need to win them over. Time for something risky. You look to Dionysus. He grins. The cue for Get the Satyr Out begins. You're nervous. It's chaotic, unpredictable, and technically includes a verse where a satyr dates a thundercloud. But the beat kicks in, the muses hit their harmonies, and something incredible happens. The gods start laughing, not the cruel kind, not the mortals am I right kind. Genuine, joy-filled laughter. Demeter nearly spills her wheat. Hermes falls off his cloud. Even Hades, watching from a shadowy portal in the back, chuckles once before disappearing with a swirl of dramatic cape. Ares looks triumphant. Dionysus does a cartwheel. You're too stunned to sing the final chorus, so Athena does it for you, in perfect pitch. You didn't even know she could sing. The final note hits. Silence. Then applause. Not polite this time, roaring, stomping, even a few divine whoops. Zeus claps once, just once, but it's so loud it knocks over a sculpture. Not bad, he says. For a sun god. You exhale. That might be the highest praise you're ever going to get. But then Hera stands, walks down the steps. She looks at you, then the band, then the audience. You all, she says, are hopelessly chaotic. She pauses. And somehow, I liked it. The muses exchange wide-eyed glances. That's Hera speak for incredible triumph. Historians still debate what Hera meant that day. Some interpret it as approval of a new divine art form. Others believe she was warning everyone not to get too attached before the gods moved on to their next hobby, which incidentally was competitive pottery. But no one can deny it, the Olympus concert marked a turning point. You realize it too. Not because of the applause, not because of the praise, but because for the first time you feel something you didn't expect to feel on Mount Olympus belonging. It's easy to forget as the god of music prophecy, and you know the sun that even deities get lonely, that even the most radiant of beings can wonder if they're more than just their titles. But standing on stage with your unruly band, hearing laughter echo off divine marble, watching your family sway slightly offbeat, something settles in your chest. Maybe you were never trying to make a great band. Maybe you just needed a real one. Later, as you pack up your instruments, Dionysus sighs dramatically. We should record an album. Ares raises an eyebrow. What's an album? Don't know yet. Dionysus replies, but it sounds important. The muses immediately begin sketching cover art involving laurel flame star maps and a donkey with eyeliner. You let them. As you leave the amphitheater, Athena stops you. That last song, she says, the one about the tree. You nod. It was accurate, she says. Painfully so. You don't ask how she knows. You don't want to. She walks away before you can respond. You wonder how many songs lie hidden in the hearts of gods who pretend not to feel. Maybe that's your next album. After your triumphant yet exhausting Olympus gig, the band faces a new challenge, staying relevant. You quickly learn that immortality isn't an excuse to avoid awkward reinvention. The gods have attention spans shorter than a mortal's nap. Your latest song, Echo, 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 was the hit of last season. Now, a half-century later, it barely gets a yawn. The problem trends, even divine trends. Apollo, god of prophecy and music, discovers that every generation wants something new and fresh, a bit like a phoenix rising. Except the phoenix is a pop star with a winged eyeliner obsession and a strange taste for laurel wreaths. You try to keep up. The muses suggest adding a beat, whatever that means, so the music feels more hip. Dionysus experiments with strange new drinks that promise creative enlightenment, but mostly just cause bad hair days and impromptu poetry slams involving too many rhymes about goats. You try a new style, chariot rock. Think guitars made from sunbeam strings drums, carved from thunderclouds, and lyrics about celestial speed limits. The band embraces it. You're on fire. Literally, your lyre sometimes catches small sparks, which is concerning but impressive. You tour again, this time, hitting mortal cities famous for their nightlife, Athens, again Delos, and even the rocky cliffs of Rhodes, where the sun god's approval ratings supposedly hit all-time highs. But not everyone loves the change. Some old-timers in Olympus grumble that you've sold out, that you're too loud, and that the new beat is unholy. Even the muses argue among themselves if the chariot rock sound respects the sacred balance of melody and harmony, or just breaks all the rules for shock value. Historians still debate whether the rise of chariot rock signaled a true musical revolution, or was just a brief celestial fad sparked by one god's midlife crisis. Some argue it laid groundwork for modern hymns. Others say it's why no one takes divine music seriously for a century. Amid the controversy, your band endures. You add new songs like Lightning Groove and Solar Flare Samba, which sometimes cause minor solar storms but are undeniably catchy. One mortal philosopher reportedly drunk on ambrosia declares your concerts a cosmic experience, transcending both time and reasonable ear damage. Back in Olympus, you start a weekly jam session with some unexpected guests. Hephaestus on hammer percussion, Hermes on quick beats, and even a reluctant Poseidon on conch shell trumpet. The sessions are chaotic, unpredictable, and often end with at least one instrument accidentally melted or tossed into the sea. But they remind you why you started this all in the first place, for the joy of music, for the unpredictable magic of sound, and maybe for a little chaos too. Because if there's one thing you've learned, it's that even gods need a good jam to survive eternity. Your band's journey through divine and mortal realms brings you face to face with the unexpected, the harsh realities of musical fame. Even when you're a god, you quickly discover that being the sun god doesn't exempt you from the dreaded curse every performer knows bad reviews. Word spreads through the grapevine, literally. Dionysus brings in the latest batch of rumor grapes bursting with gossip. Some mortals think we're too loud, he says, peeling a berry thoughtfully. Others say we're too soft. Ares grumbles, polishing his drumsticks with unusual aggression. But the real challenge comes when you start noticing the critics, those pesky mortals who analyze every note with the passion of a philosopher and the sting of a viper. One particularly sharp-tongued poet from Athens named Lycos pens a scathing ode titled The Liar's Lament. It accuses your music of blinding excess and divine arrogance, ending with a flourish that suggests you should try silence next time. You read it aloud to the band, and the reaction is mixed. Dionysus shrugs. Can't please everyone. But maybe silence is the next big thing. You, however, take it personally. It's your first real taste of mortal criticism, and it stings more than a dry olive pit stuck in your throat. To recover, you schedule a small, intimate concert in a quiet grove near Delphi. No flash, no chaos, just raw acoustic sound. The mortals who come are fewer but deeply attentive. You play The Tree Remembers, again, this time stripped down bare bones. The silence between notes is almost louder than the music itself. You realize something. Sometimes the spaces between sounds say more than the sounds. Afterward, an old woman approaches. She's wrapped in a threadbare cloak and smells faintly of time and history. She tells you a story about a lullaby her mother sang when she was a child, a song lost to time but alive in memory. You decide to adapt it. It becomes Mother's Whisper, a gentle tune that floats like a breeze through olive trees. The band embraces it. Even Ares finds himself humming it in the shower, which is both surprising and slightly terrifying. The song is a hit not because it's loud or flashy, but because it's honest. You learn that music isn't just about power or perfection. It's about connection, about carrying stories forward. Historians still argue whether Mother's Whisper influenced later mortal lullabies or was simply a coincidence in the slow evolution of folk songs. But the song endures. You notice, too, that the critics have softened. Lycos writes a follow-up poem praising your humility and calling you a god who listens. You smile and wonder if gods ever really stop learning, or if the best songs come from the places where you least expect them. Time, as always, flows like a lazy river, and your band's story moves with it, sometimes fast, sometimes meandering like a goat on a mountain trail. One particularly slow season finds you wandering through Arcadia, the idyllic countryside of Greece, known for its peaceful forests, wandering shepherds, and, oddly enough, an abundance of muses hiding behind trees. You stumble into a curious tradition called the Pythian Games, a sort of ancient festival mixing athletic contests, poetry readings, and musical performances, all held in honor of your own temple at Delphi. You realize this is an opportunity your music could be the anthem of these games. But there's a catch. The competition is fierce. Mortal musicians train their entire lives for a chance to play at the Pythian Games, and you're expected to be both inspiring and, well, relatable. Relatable for a god. You try not to laugh. The first night of the games is a whirlwind. You watch mortal musicians play their lyres' pipes, and even the rare and terrifying double flute, which is basically a wind instrument designed by someone who hates your ears. One performer, a shepherd named Callias, has a melody so simple and sweet it feels like a cool breeze on a hot day. You make a note to steal it later. When it's your band's turn, you play a piece called Arcadian Twilight, a soft, shimmering melody meant to capture the calm as day fades into night. The crowd listens, breath held the only sounds the gentle chirping of crickets and the soft rustling of olive leaves. For a moment, you feel you've truly captured the heart of the place. Afterward, the judges confer. One is a stern old woman who insists music must challenge the soul. Another is a young man who claims music is the heartbeat of the universe. They argue about the meaning of your performance with a passion that would make philosophers proud. You overhear someone say, Apollo's music is too divine, can mortals really understand it? Historians still debate whether the Pythian Games music competition was a ritual of communion or a way for mortals to assert their own creative voices. Either way, it becomes clear music is a conversation across worlds. As the festival ends, a young mortal approaches you. Your music, she says shyly, reminds me of the stars, like I'm listening to the sky itself. You smile, heart warm. In this quiet exchange, you realize the true power of your music isn't the spectacle. It's the moments between notes, the shared breaths, the feeling of connection, no matter how vast the divide between God and mortal. And in that moment under Arcadian stars, you think maybe this is the real legacy you want to leave. Not trophies or temples, but songs that outlive even immortality. Your musical adventures take a surprising turn when you encounter Pan, the god of wild nature shepherds, and the ultimate party animal of Greek mythology. Pan's known for his panpipes, a set of hollow reeds magically bound to create haunting melodies that make animals stop and stare, sometimes dance, and occasionally throw their hats in the air. You've always respected Pan's raw, earthy style, even if you secretly think it sounds like a goat in mid-hiccup. One late afternoon, deep in the forests of Arcadia, Pan challenges you to a musical duel. The challenge. A friendly contest to see who can summon the most enchanting tune. You agree, lyre ready, fingers itching. Pan starts with a slow, teasing melody that winds through the trees like a gentle breeze. The birds pause mid-flight. The leaves shimmer. You counter with Sunbeam Serenade, a bright, intricate piece meant to mimic sunlight dancing on water. Pan grins, eyes twinkling with mischief. The contest escalates. Pan plays a wild, rhythmic tune that sounds like a stampede of happy goats. You respond with a smooth, flowing melody that weaves in the hum of bees and the rustle of olive branches. The forest seems to hold its breath. At the end, there's no clear winner, only laughter. Pan throws an arm around your shoulder, shaking with joy. "You're more fun than I expected," he admits. You grin, secretly relieved you didn't get upstaged by reeds and goat hooves. The duel becomes a tradition. Sometimes it's just the two of you trading songs and stories beneath the stars. Other times it's a full-on forest festival with dryads, nymphs, and the occasional confused mortal wandering in for a free concert. This unlikely friendship teaches you that music isn't just about perfection or power. It's about wildness, the unplanned, the untamed, the messy bits that make life interesting. Pan's style is chaotic, sure, but it's also honest and full of heart. Historians still argue whether Pan's influence on music was as profound as Apollo's, or just a fun footnote in the great mythological jam session. But you don't care. You've found a kindred spirit, and sometimes the best music is the kind that surprises you, the kind that reminds you to loosen your sandals and dance like no one's watching, even if they're all gods, and they totally are. Time moves on, and your band's dynamic shifts once again with the arrival of the mysterious and enigmatic muse Calliope. She's the muse of epic poetry, which basically means she tells the best, most dramatic stories, kind of like the original hype person, only with a lyre instead of a megaphone. Calliope slides into your jam session one evening, her presence commanding enough to silence a room filled with shouting satyrs. She offers you a deal, help her compose an epic ballad, celebrating the great deeds of heroes and gods alike. And in return, she'll give your music the kind of narrative power it's been missing. You agree, curious. The collaboration is intense. Calliope's vision is vast heroes, battling monsters, gods, meddling in mortal affairs. The rise and fall of empires all woven into soaring verses and thunderous choruses. Your band adapts blending story with song, creating a new hybrid that captivates audiences. You debut the piece at the next festival, and the crowd is spellbound. Even the stoic Hades is seen nodding appreciatively from the shadows. But the project isn't without challenges. Epic poetry demands patience and precision, something your band's chaotic energy occasionally struggles with. At one point, Dionysus tries to add a wild twist involving a vineyard monster, which Calliope promptly vetoes. Still, the fusion of story and music opens new doors. You start thinking beyond simple tunes. What if songs could tell stories that last forever? Historians still argue whether this fusion marked the birth of ancient Greek opera or was just a forgotten experiment. But one thing is clear: you've expanded the possibilities of divine music. And as you watch the audience sway to your epic ballad, you realize something deeper. Music isn't just sound. It's memory. It's history. It's the heartbeat of culture. And in that realization, you find a new kind of fulfillment, one that doesn't depend on applause or divine favor, but on connection across time. Calliope smiles, knowing she's sparked something powerful, and you for once feel like more than just the god of music. You're a storyteller, a keeper of legends, and maybe, just maybe, the leader of the most unusual band in all of Olympus. Your band's journey takes an unexpected detour when you're invited to perform at a rather unusual venue, the underworld. Hades, ever the brooding host, has heard whispers of your band's charm and wants to see if you can truly bring light to his dark realm, or at least keep the shades entertained. You accept lyre in hand, curious about this trip to the land of the dead. The entrance to the underworld is as ominous as you expect a river that glows faintly with spectral light. A ferryman with an impressive poker face and shadows that flicker like ancient memories. You step onto the stage in the Elysian Fields, a surprisingly beautiful place where heroes and favored souls lounge in eternal peace. The audience a mixed bag. Famous heroes like Achilles nod along while philosophers debate loudly in the background. You open with Songs for the Lost, a haunting melody that seems to reach into the depths of the soul. The music is softer here, echoing the bittersweet nature of the realm. You notice some shades wiping what might be tears, or maybe just mist. Hades watches from his throne arms crossed, clearly impressed despite his usual grim demeanor. But the performance is not without its quirks. Persephone, his queen, occasionally sneaks in to add a floral note to the chorus, literally scattering blossoms that glow faintly in the dark. At one point, a ghostly spectator tries to join in with a mournful howl, causing a momentary but memorable cacophony. Your band adapts on the fly, turning the howls into a harmonic rhythm. The experience is surreal. You feel music's power in a new way, not just as entertainment, but as a bridge between life and death. Historians still argue whether these underworld concerts were myth or metaphor for ancient rites of passage. But the feeling lingers. When the last note fades, the audience erupts not with applause, but with a profound silence that feels like respect. Hades stands and nods once. A rare gift, he says. You smile, humbled. Leaving the underworld, you realize music transcends all boundaries, even the most final ones. It connects souls, tells stories beyond life, and offers comfort in the darkest places. You vow to carry this lesson forward, letting every note you play honor not just the living, but those who came before. Back on Olympus, the band's fame grows, but so do the distractions. Your next big hurdle. Managing the chaotic mess that is godly groupies. These aren't your ordinary fangirls and fanboys. Nope. These celestial fans have powers that range from mild annoyances to outright cosmic disasters. One particularly persistent admirer is the nymph Echo, yes, the same one famous for repeating the last words she hears. She follows the band around mimicking your lyrics in a slightly off-key, haunting way. At first, it's endearing. Then, it's less so. You try to shush her during rehearsals, but she just echoes louder. Meanwhile, Hermes starts a fan club with winged sandals as membership perks. And rumor has it, Aphrodite's temple has started selling Apollo's greatest hits incense, which smells like a confusing mix of laurel and burnt lyre strings. The band struggles to keep focus amid the frenzy. You attempt a quiet hour rehearsal, but it's crashed by a flock of singing sirens demanding a duet. Your patience wears thin. You wonder if any god before you had to deal with this. Historians still debate whether these mythological fan phenomena were early metaphors for celebrity culture or simply imaginative storytelling. One thing's clear fame, even divine, comes with its own set of problems. Still, amidst the madness, you find unexpected moments of warmth. A shy mortal girl inspired by your music gifts, you a laurel wreath she crafted herself. You tuck it behind your ear, a small reminder that beyond the chaos your music touches real hearts. Sometimes the greatest harmony comes not from perfect notes, but from imperfect moments shared. And if you have to endure a few annoying echoes, well, that's the price of being a god with a fan base. As your band's legend expands, you encounter an unexpected rival, Marsyas, a satyr with an ego as big as his aulos, a double-piped wind instrument known for its penetrating, somewhat nasal sound. Marsyas challenges you to a music contest famous for ending in tragedy. But hey, you're feeling brave. The contest is set in a clearing surrounded by an audience of gods, mortals, and critters who seem more interested in munching than music. Marsyas blows his pipes with such passion that the trees seem to dance involuntarily. You respond with your lyre, weaving a melody that's both elegant and defiant. Round after round you trade musical blows, notes flying like arrows. The tension thickens until you decide to raise the stakes. You play your lyre upside down, a trick that stuns everyone. Marsyas, desperate, cranks up his pipes until the very earth seems to quake. The contest ends with Apollo declared the winner, but not without consequences. Marsyas is punished harshly, tied to a tree, flayed alive for his hubris according to the classic myth. You try to ignore the dark undertones, focusing instead on the legacy of the contest. Historians still debate whether this myth represents divine justice or a cautionary tale against pride. Some argue it's an allegory about music's power and the dangers of challenging the gods. You find the story a little grim for bedtime, but it does highlight something important. Music is a serious business with risks and rewards. And sometimes the line between competition and cruelty is thinner than a harp string. Despite the rivalry, you carry a secret respect for Marsyas, a reminder that even the wildest spirits can inspire greatness. Your band plays on blending your refined style with hints of satyr wildness, creating a sound that's uniquely yours. Because in the end, music is about more than winning. It's about expression, connection, and sometimes a bit of rebellion. The next leg of your musical odyssey leads you to Delphi once more, but this time with a curious task to compose an anthem that embodies the spirit of prophecy and mystery, the essence of the oracle. You remember that Delphi isn't just a scenic spot for music festivals. It's a center of spiritual insight where the Pythia channels cryptic messages from Apollo himself. Creating a song to honor such a profound place feels like walking a tightrope made of golden lyre strings. You begin with gentle notes, weaving in the murmurs of the sacred spring, the rustling of the laurel leaves, and the hushed whispers of pilgrims. The melody is elusive, shifting like a dream caught just before waking. As you play, you sense the presence of the oracle herself, cloaked in mist and silence. She listens, her voice a riddle of breath and meaning. You incorporate her cryptic phrases into the lyrics, enigmatic lines that hint at destiny, but reveal nothing concrete. Historians still argue whether the oracle's prophecies were ever truly divine or cleverly vague statements designed to maintain power and mystery. Your anthem reflects this ambiguity, both inviting and frustrating listeners. Mortals at Delphi hum the tune, hoping it will unlock secrets of their own futures. Your band performs it during a sacred ceremony, where the air is thick with incense and anticipation. The music feels less like entertainment and more like a ritual, a bridge between the known and the unknowable. You realize this is music's other power, not just to soothe or excite, but to evoke wonder and contemplation. Calliope nods approvingly, sensing your growth beyond simple melodies. You understand that some songs aren't meant to answer questions, but to inspire them, and in this delicate balance of sound and silence, you find a new harmony, one that echoes in the hearts of those who dare to listen closely. Your band's adventures gradually evolve beyond music and myth when you stumble upon a curious mortal invention, the theater. Now, you probably think ancient Greek theater was just people talking in togas, but no, it's a whole spectacle, masks, drama, chorus, and storytelling that grips audiences like a siren's song. You get invited to collaborate with the first playwrights who see your music as the perfect companion to their tragedies and comedies. At first, it's awkward. You're used to solo performances or small ensembles, not synchronized soundtracks to people delivering dramatic monologues about fate, hubris, and occasionally mistaken identities. Your band experiments with mood-setting scores, slow, haunting melodies for tragedy, lively, playful tunes for comedy. You even try your hand at background music, a concept that baffles your fellow gods but intrigues mortals. One night you attend a performance of Orestes, and you feel something shift. The way music intertwines with story creates a powerful emotional experience. You realize you've helped birth a new art form, a blend of sound and drama that shapes culture for centuries. Of course, you don't take all the credit. Dionysus makes sure everyone remembers his role as god of theater wine and wild nights. But you know the truth, without music, the theater's soul would be incomplete. Historians still debate who truly invented ancient Greek theater, but many agree that music's integration was revolutionary. You think about your band's humble beginnings, the jam sessions, the forest duels, the divine concerts, and marvel at how far you've come. Music has grown from a mere pastime to a powerful storytelling tool capable of moving gods and mortals alike. As the curtain falls on this collaboration, you feel a deep satisfaction. Your music isn't just about fame or fun anymore. It's about legacy. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be remembered not just as the god of music, but as the spark that ignited a cultural revolution. The final chapter of your musical journey unfolds with a quiet reflection beneath the stars on Mount Olympus. You sit alone, lyre resting gently in your lap, fingers tracing the strings as you ponder everything: the triumphs, the failures, the wild duels with Pan, the haunting concerts in the underworld, the tangled web of fame, and the unexpected friendships. You think about the band, your loyal companions who have shaped this adventure, each with their quirks and talents. It's not just about the music anymore. It's about the stories shared, the bonds forged, and the moments that transcended time. You realize the true power of music isn't in perfection or applause, but in its ability to carry emotion and memory across generations. The stars above seem to pulse softly, as if in rhythm with your thoughts. You hum a gentle tune, a lullaby of sorts, woven from fragments of all the melodies you've ever played. It's soothing, simple, a soft invitation to rest. Historians still debate whether Apollo's musical legacy was divine inspiration or the result of countless mortal tales stitched together. But you don't need their conclusions. You feel the music in your bones, in the wind, in the hearts of those who listen. With a quiet smile, you lean back, eyes half closed. The gentle hum of the night surrounds you, and as the first light of dawn tinges the sky, you know your music will live on. Not just as myth, but as a whisper in the breeze, a soft echo in the night, and a friend to anyone who ever needed a song to fall asleep to. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together.